Okay, welcome. This is our presentation on change management, which is step 7 in ITIL.
So what is change management and why should we care? Change management allows for the transition of emerging technologies and processes. Change can occur, misalignments, bugs, flaws within the enterprise, but change management is much more than that. Change management is a form of service transition when an emerging technology is in development. The ability to smoothly and efficiently change the technology over to the service operation status becomes dependent on the change management itself. So say you're in a corporation and you have a new CEO that comes in or a brand new technology that you're trying to implement into the infrastructure itself. Change management will be there to make it more smooth and efficient for that technology to be incorporated within your business. But why should we care about this? With each iteration of technology, there is a chance that it may be misaligned with the infrastructure as a whole, meaning it may have flaws or bugs that need worked out prior to the launch. For this reason, many companies decide to run their new technologies in parallel with each other. This is something we have learned in Ernie's project management class. Instead of booting out one technology and iterating the other technology immediately overnight, there may be certain problems that arise with this. So if you run them in parallel, you have the mitigation and the risk a lot lower since you'll have two technologies running side by side. However, with this implementation, there are a lot more costs and resources that are required to be able to run two technologies side by side. You may be asking yourself now, what is the difference between IT changes and change management? IT changes has multiple things, kind of like an umbrella that cover it. IT flaws, fixes, bug resolution, general technology issues. Say your printer doesn't work, that's an IT change. You're going to have IT come in and fix IT-related problems. Change management is much more than that. Change management is actually an umbrella that encompasses IT changes as well. So as I said before, you may have a new CEO that comes in and takes the place of a prior CEO. Change management will have a place in this change iteration within the company. IT changes is in direct alignment with the changes in IT-related problems and nothing more. Whereas change management, like I said, is an umbrella that covers IT-related changes as well as other changes within the corporation as a whole. Meaning, if there is a change in a process or controls with even the HR staff, then change management would play a role in this transition as well as any IT-related change that may take place. So as I mentioned earlier, change management is an umbrella that encompasses multiple items, not just IT. Mission and strategy, you may have a different mission statement or strategy that you decide to incorporate within your business that may change. Change management will have a direct hand in this. People may come and go. This is standard within any company. Change management will also have a hand in this. Policies and legal agreements. Anything could happen in any state, changing the laws and policies that are in set for any company to follow. Change management will have a hand in this. Like I said before, change management is an umbrella that encompasses multiple things, and here is just a list of but a few items that change management has a hand in.
One of the questions that comes up because of change management is why do we have to do all this paperwork? So the bigger question is, when is change management necessary? So as it reads here, it's when a service becomes unavailable or degraded during normal service hours. The functionality of a service becomes different. The big picture is that changes that are routine, that involve little risk, they skip the process and become just service tickets and service fixes. Anything that will be high risk or higher risk that requires more planning or thinking, that will go into the change management process.
We are going to step through the process. The first step in the process is to create and log the request for change form. This documentation is helpful going forward so that all the people who come across this change and participate in the change management process have all the details. Things that should be included on this document are contact information for the instigators of the change and for other people involved, why it's happening and what will happen if it doesn't happen, how the change is going to be implemented, a risk assessment, the backup plan for when things go wrong, the people that are going to be impacted, and how the systems are going to be affected. By solidifying this, we are able to move on to the next step and get this page or this document approved. So it gets sent over to the approvers and they have a discussion about it. Do we approve it? Do we need more information? Or do we reject the change? Should it need more information, it kind of bounces back up to the previous step and you have to do more documentation. From there, the change is evaluated. After submitting the change request document, it's time to evaluate this change. Some questions to consider as the evaluation process is going on is, has this been done before? Will this be done in the future? Is there something that they are missing in the implementation? What is the risk associated with the change? What is the impact of the change? What is the impact of not performing the change? What is the return on investment? Additionally, the reviewer should consider the timing of the change. Oftentimes, this is dependent on answering questions like, is this a security issue or a bug fix, or simply a nice-to-have feature that isn't on a timeline? The list of questions that should be answered are specific to the company and to the type of change. Be sure to consider the many different parts that play into the change. The questions don't all need to be answered, however they need to be asked. After reviewing the request, an owner is assigned to the change. They will be in charge of implementing that. The next step in the process is to approve the change. Change requests require approval and authorization from different departments within the company. Going through an approval process facilitates the sharing of information between the interacting individuals. This leads to addressing topics that might have been overlooked.
Once the change has been totally approved and it's through the process, it is time to build it. After building it and testing it, it's deployed. Test environments are typically like staging servers. So they'll build it locally in a development environment, and then it's tested on some kind of staging environment. And then at some point, once it's been looked at and vetted, then they deploy it to actual servers. So once build and test is done, the change manager is notified so they can coordinate development. It's their job to make sure that they communicate changes and risks to stakeholders, and then the impacts to the overall system to the stakeholders as well. The change manager also takes into account outages or deviations in availability. They're the ones who decide when a rollout is supposed to happen, and they coordinate timing of that so that a rollout happens during like low hours when there's low usage, and when it's the best available time for the users and for the people who are supporting it. So after it's deployed, then the people involved get together and review it. They talk about the changes and maybe what needs to happen in the change management process. So this includes reviewing records to determine whether the change was successful or failed, recording details about the time and expense of the change to determine the accuracy of estimates that were made before a request was fulfilled. Sometimes this is referred to as a post-mortem. This is especially applicable after there's an emergency change. Let's say a system fails and basically an emergency change is made where they say, okay, we do this process, but we do it in 15 minutes instead of several hours or days. They get together after that and kind of pick up the pieces to see what happened. And at that point, you're at the end of the change management process.
Within this process, there are many key roles that must be assigned within the enterprise for these changes. First, the change initiator. This individual is one who identifies the desired need within the company. These people should be very familiar with the process that they are requiring change for. The next person in the process is the change coordinator. This person determines the many factors involved in the desired change. For example, the risk and impact that the change could have on the organization, the plans needed to create the change, and monitors the overall progress. The Change Advisory Board is very important to the operation by ensuring that the changes proposed are beneficial to the enterprise. They ensure that the risk and cost that are involved in making the change do not outweigh the benefit that the change will have. The approver is very similar to the advisory board, but in this case, they are the ones that give the final stamp of approval for the given project. Finally, the change implementation team, or specialist, take the idea of the change and make it reality, ensuring to test the project. Key performance indicators, or KPIs, are very easy to understand if you know how ticketing works with standard issues and IT tickets made for an organization. These three examples of key indicators give the overall view of how well the changes proposed are being handled and how well they are processed. Successful changes are very self-explanatory. It is the indication of the changes that have been successfully implemented compared to the overall changes that are being processed. Backlog changes are the opposite. They indicate the changes that have not been implemented. In conclusion, without change management, the corporations would have a much more difficult time adapting to new technologies, emerging ideas, product advancement, and overall efficiency within an ever-growing company within a competitive market. Gone are the days of one large change every 36 months. Organizations are facing faster, more complex, more interdependent, and more cross-functional changes than ever before. Being able to deliver results on multiple changes allows an organization to achieve their strategic vision and thrive in today's changing landscape.